She was in the streets as far as like, stripping and making money.
Providing each other's needs on a very basic level.
Trade with him for money. I don't think she was unaware.
And between what's right and what's wrong.
Right is right, wrong is wrong.
He thought it was just another night with someone he loved. But by morning, he was gasping for air, poisoned by the person he trusted most. Among the 7 deadly sins, lust and greed often go hand in hand. She was on the streets, working, earning, and trying to survive. Both love and money became equally important to her, working with him mainly for financial gain. Still, she wasn't completely unaware of what was happening.
A former St. Louis reality TV star found guilty in a murder-for-hire plot. Tim Norman was known for appearing on the reality series Welcome to Sweetie Pies. Well, today, a jury said Norman planned his nephew's murder and tried to cash in on his life insurance.
Says Montgomery's uncle, 41-year-old James Norman, was arrested this morning in Jackson, Mississippi for conspiring with another woman to have his nephew killed.
The peace of the night is suddenly shattered by gunfire. Bullets fly inside and outside a house. "I was tracking him like a dog," one man said later. In moments like these, we wonder, how many lies do we tell ourselves to justify actions we claim are for money but are truly for love? Whatever happened that night could have been prevented. March 14th, 2016, St. Louis, Missouri. Just after dark on Natural Bridge Avenue, a high-crime area of North St. Louis, multiple gunshots break the silence. The city's 911 center is flooded with calls. One caller even names the victim, Andre Montgomery Jr. At just 21, Dre was a well-known reality TV star, the grandson of Robbie Montgomery, creator of Welcome to Sweetie Pies. Within minutes, police and paramedics rushed to the scene, hoping to save him. A promising life. Andre Montgomery was born in San Diego, California, to Andre Montgomery Sr. and Michelle Griggs. His father was murdered when Dre was only 8 months old. After that, Michelle moved her children to Texas for emotional support from her family. His grandmother, Miss Robbie, adored him. She sent him gifts every Christmas and treated him like her own son. As Dre grew older, he began spending summers and holidays in St. Louis with Ms. Robbie. His uncle Tim Norman, Robbie's second son, became a mentor to him. Eventually, with his mother's permission, Dre joined the family business, Sweetie Pies, a famous soul food restaurant featured in the hit reality show Welcome to Sweetie Pies. The show became a huge success, and Dre, with his youthful energy, connected deeply with viewers. The night of the shooting, police arrive at the scene to find chaos. A young man is injured outside, not Dre, while blood trails lead inside the house. In the dining room, Andre Montgomery lies face down, fatally shot. Investigators find several guns and bullet casings inside and outside the home. The number of weapons suggests multiple shooters, possibly gang-related. Friends tell police Dre had been in the basement recording music when he got a call from a woman. He said, "I'll be right back," and stepped outside. Moments later, gunshots rang out. Detectives soon realized this wasn't a robbery. Dre's wallet and phone were untouched. It looked like an ambush. They trace his last phone activity and find repeated calls and messages from a contact named Alexis the Great. While detectives investigate, the devastating task of identifying Dre's body falls to his grandmother, Ms. Robbie. In Texas, his mother, Michelle, receives a 2 a.m. phone call confirming her worst fear. It was Dre. She fainted upon hearing the news. "There was nothing I could say or do to stop her pain," a family member recalled. The family rift and the start of a deadly plot. Days later, detectives learned that someone had recently disabled Ms. Robbie's home alarm system, something only she, Tim Norman, or Dre could do. When Ms. Robbie's house was burglarized, she was in Los Angeles with her son Tim, while Andre was still in St. Louis. Because of the timing, suspicion immediately fell on Dre. He strongly denied any involvement, but the accusation deeply hurt him. Dre's mother, Michelle, and his family in Texas refused to believe it. "He wasn't a thief," Michelle said. "If Dre needed money, he would ask to borrow it. He'd never steal." Wanting to clear his name, Dre returned to St. Louis to take a polygraph test and prove his innocence. He only came back to show his grandmother that he loved her and had nothing to do with the break-in. The St. Louis Police Department later confirmed he had no role in the burglary. But even as his name was cleared, questions remained. Who wanted to hurt Dre, and why? Was it about money? Was he set up? Everything seemed to lead back to the mysterious woman who had called him just before the shooting. Police began tracking the unknown woman who had lured 21-year-old Andre Montgomery to his death. All they had were phone records under the name Alexis the Great. Digital forensics experts found that the last calls and texts to Dre came from a burner phone. However, earlier conversations had come from a registered number, and that phone belonged to Tarika Tanisha Ellis, an exotic dancer from Memphis, Tennessee. When St. Louis detectives contacted Memphis police, they confirmed Tarika's identity. She had minor vice-related charges in her past, but no serious criminal record. Still, she vanished before investigators could question her. Police issued a BOLO, be on the lookout, alert nationwide. Meanwhile, Dre's mother refused to give up. She called St. Louis police almost every day, determined to find her son's killer. "I wasn't going to let him become just another statistic," she said. "He wasn't going to be a name forgotten on a shelf." Her persistence kept the case alive. But as she pushed for answers, one detail stood out. Dre's uncle, Tim Norman, had been distant since the murder. He hadn't contacted Michelle after Dre's death and seemed cold during the funeral. "When I shook his hand, he looked away," one family member recalled. "A real man looks you in the eye." Police, however, had little to go on. They dismissed it as family tension, and since Tim wasn't in St. Louis the day of the shooting, he wasn't considered a suspect. For 2 years, the case went cold. A break in the case. Then came an unexpected lead. From inside the St. Louis County Jail, officers monitoring inmate calls overheard a conversation between a prisoner and his brother. The brother bragged about killing a man for $5,000 and named his victim Andre Montgomery. Detectives quickly identified the caller as Travel Hill, a man with a history of drug offenses but no violent crimes. When questioned, Hill broke down and confessed. Andre Montgomery was lured out of a St. Louis studio in March 2016 and shot dead. The hitman, Travel Hill, confessed he was paid $5,000. The mastermind, Andre's uncle, Tim Norman. Tim Norman, driven by greed and deceit, had secretly taken out large life insurance policies on his own nephew, Andre Montgomery, making himself the sole beneficiary. To carry out his cold-blooded plan, he enlisted the help of Tarika Ellis, a woman he had once dated. Using her as bait, Tim directed Tarika to reach out to Andre and convince him to share his location. Tarika played her part, pretending it was an innocent meeting, but in reality, every move was being watched and planned. When Andre stepped outside the recording studio that night in St. Louis, unaware of the trap set for him, tragedy struck within seconds. Waiting nearby was Travel Hill, a young man hired to do the unthinkable. As Andre appeared, Hill approached and fired 5 deadly shots, ending the 21-year-old's life on the spot. Later, Hill would confess to the authorities that he had been paid $5,000 for the hit, money that traced back to Tim Norman himself. The revelation stunned the community and tore the Montgomery family apart, exposing a shocking betrayal where a man chose money and malice over his own blood. Tim had taken out life insurance policies on Andre and used his ex, Tarika Ellis, to lure him by sharing his location. When Andre stepped outside, Travel was waiting. Both Tim and Tarika were arrested in 2020. In 2022, Tim was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life in prison. Andre's mother now faces her birthday, shared with her late son, in tears. A year later in Chicago, another tragedy struck. In March 2017, 26-year-old Darius Ellis was found dying at his friend's door, his mouth and throat burned by bleach. He had been attacked by his girlfriend, Yasmin Elder, during a fight. She later admitted she lost control. Yasmin was sentenced to 40 years in prison. 2 families, one destroyed by greed, the other by rage. Both left grieving sons who never got the chance to live their dreams. Some stories end in peace. This one ended in pain, a reminder that love, when twisted by anger and control, can destroy everything in its path. Justice came, but at a heavy price. Another life lost. Another story buried beneath headlines and silence. If you want to uncover more untold cases, the ones that fade too soon, subscribe to Last Known Truth, where every story deserves to be heard.